Hello and welcome to another episode of Super Pros Bros. I'm player 1, player 2, Eli, and with me as always is...
Player 1, Isaac who remembers his name, and Teddy Roosevelt. Did you know that this pod is on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify?
I did not Brotel, California. Are those the same places that they could comment,
share,
and subscribe?
It sure is.
How about that?
That is nifty, isn't it?
We're quickly devolving into like a transatlantic accent, and I hate it.
Why, Brohammer, what is on the docket today?
Oh, kill it with fire. Alright, and what is on the topic of conversation?
Well, it seems we've got a badass problem and... provident? What's a good P word for positive? Screw it. We got badasses on the brain.
On the docket.
On the old Dockerino.
And for those of you at home struggling going, what does he mean? A badass.
Is it an ass that has gone bad? Does it need
it's
to be
past
put
its
down?
expiration date. Well, when you crawl out of the cardboard box you've been living under, we are going to define a badass today as an individual who can either fight, withstand, or accomplish stuff through insane odds or adversity as attributed to their own kind of personal grit or ability. So basically someone who it's like, holy crap, how did they pull that? How did they manage to struggle through this shit? And we're going to go through some examples that we think are done very, very right. Some examples that are done very, very wrong.
So on the old rightometer, we got the kind of immediate thought of ours, both of ours, I think, was Guts from Berserk.
Yes, 100%.
Not only is he a beef kick, he's also quite intuitive, very smart, and one of the things that I think is really fun and kind of like gives the character the clout to do this is that he's a little bit like a solitary guy, but he's also a guy that trains
fucking stop.
Yeah.
So
he also, sorry, go ahead.
As I say, quick disclaimer for things that we believe make badasses right is that they are still human. They have to work for their talent, and that their displays of badassery do have costs. There is nothing without consequence.
Yeah, it's the economy of character, as I'm trying to
fancy
call it. Yeah, thank you. But for Guts, an example, to be as badass as he does spend many panels of the original manga training.
Yeah.
He has difficulty connecting with people because he is so much about the idea of being initially, Griffith's right-hand man and then being like the best, most powerful version of himself. Yeah. The idea of like, kind of tact, a little lost on him.
Yeah, he's socially stunted. Like let's call a spade a spade. He's socially stunted.
Yeah, like it's well into his story that he first time has a relationship with somebody, and while it's beautiful, it also has some problems of the oops, I almost killed you sort of kind.
Yeah. He has intrusive memories because he has PTSD. Like
to the max.
To the nth degree, and not without cause. Like a lot of shit happened to him.
This man did not have the best merry-go-round experience, to say it lightly.
No. And that's part of what makes it so good is that he is so like he's the epitome of does not back down, does not give up. Ever.
Yep.
And he still loses and refuses to be broken by a loss, which is good life advice or good life aspirations in general. But that there's also like he's not immune to psychological fallout from watching people die and all sorts of good shit.
And carries that weight and also has introspective moments about that from time to time. Doesn't kind of, just take it off the old shoulder pads there and, you know, just like wipe that away. All right, moving on. It's like it hurts him.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he is a badass, but when he loses people, it's something that carries with him. And that's part of the reason that, like, you know, you hope for him to do well and you want him to continue to succeed.
And I'm going to throw my tiny bit of psychologist hat in here because he's a fun
Throw
character.
away.
There's a moment where he realizes that he doesn't just want to be Griffith's bagman anymore.
Yeah.
And what I love most about it is that he has no fucking clue what he wants to do next.
Yeah.
He just knows that isn't right. Like, that's his first moment of genuine self-actualization where he's like, I can be more than this. I can be more than just a fucking walking sword. He doesn't know what the fuck that is or what it's supposed to be. Yeah. But he just knows this isn't all he's supposed to be.
Well, and the reason he wants to do that is because he wants to be Griffith's true friend.
Yeah.
Because he comes upon a situation where Griffith doesn't know he's there, and Griffith expounds to the princess what a true friend is and what an equal is. And he knows he wants to be that. He doesn't know what becoming that means or how to become it, but he knows that that's what he wants to be. And so, like, I guess he's undeterred regardless of likelihood of, you know, accomplishing a goal. It's just like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I should do. And kind of like sees the line to come up with a victory that, you know, isn't costing anybody anything. You know, it's not like he doesn't see people and go, oh, I shouldn't, you know, fucking kill them or something like that. It's that, you know, to accomplish a dream, he sees that it's going to be difficult and, you know, persisted.
Yeah.
Now that we've expounded upon probably like the most apex of what a well-written badass is, let's look at some other great, arguably more known and notable ones. Or not notable, but more known.
Yeah.
So Gimli was a kind of fun one that we came across. And it's not that he doesn't have a lot of like the problems that Guts does, because Guts is the king ding-a-ling when it comes to being a badass.
Tragic backstories.
Yeah, tragic backstories. And like also, I mean, all the other things that we listed with like introspection, you know, showing work, showing weight, and all this like other stuff. But Gimli does one of the kind of things that is not done in the bad characters we'll talk about a bit, is that he's insecure. You can see that he's trying to, even upon his first time you see him, and we're talking specifically about the films in this case.
Yeah.
In the first time you see him in the movie, the first line is that, oh, we'll just destroy the ring with this axe I brought. As if they didn't think about it. Like, he's trying to show his worth. Like, he's got that, oh, crap. I don't know his name. So one of, in the original motion picture, Seven Samurai, there's this one character that wants to be a samurai but isn't. And it's kind of lied about it, carries a huge sword. I cannot remember which one it is. I will put it in the note of the next one. But the idea of like trying to show off and like, see, I belong. And like Gimli so much has that kind of moment where, you know, he wants to be like, yeah, see, I can contribute.
I can do it too.
This is before he's even part of the band and needs to show his worth. He's just a guy sitting around this war meeting, and he's definitely the youngest dwarf and definitely like one of the guys that should be shutting the hell up. And he's like, no, I'm gonna help. It's like, dude,
bro,
like,
chill.
Yeah. You think they didn't try hitting this with something before?
And you see it other times too, like when he always has to prove himself, especially against like Legolas becomes the overconfident foil that he ends up measuring himself against. And the kind of counting, which more on that to come, slight spoilers. Mm-hmm. But he's always got to be doing something to show that he is worth his weight. Like, he can't... Even though there's people in the group that are actually dead weights, looking at you, Merry and Pippin, you guys are actually an active detriment in Fellowship of the Ring. Mine's a Moria. And the other thing too, that he does get a lot of depth and has to overcome some trauma that's kind of glossed over in a way, is they go to Moria.
Oh yeah.
Like, basically his extended clan is dead.
Yeah. The people, like his family.
Yeah.
Like, it's his uncle or whatever, like, supposed to be there with, like, a bunch of his kin, and they're gone.
And it's gone. And, like, he gets kind of a very clear moment of just, like, crying over a skeleton that's been picked clean. And then kind of, has to hoist himself up. It's like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here. But he has, like, that moment of quote-unquote humanity. He's a dwarf, whatever. And still forces himself to move forward and doesn't just get, like, trapped in grief and become useless. He still needs to prove and still wants to prove that he belongs. Because right there, that's his immediate family he has to fit in with.
Mm-hmm. So the character I was referencing, I did a little Googling, is Kikuchio, who's the character that lies about being a samurai to join in with the Seven Samurai and take on the mission. It's kind of like the same thing of like, yes, I'm helping. I'm this real thing. It's like, no,
are you?
It's that idea of trying to prove yourself and belong. It's very much like kind of Gimli's thing.
Yeah.
So like, even though he is strong and awesome, like he's insecure.
Yeah.
He has a cost that he needs to feel like he needs to make up for. Switching from the bearded to the beautiful, who is your next badass?
Our next one down the list is Lara Croft. Notably, New Age Lara Croft from newer games. We don't need the square polygonal tits. Sorry.
Ouch! It's sharp.
And I don't care for the Angelina Jolie movies. No. But the newer games that started coming out in like 2014, 2015, and the movie that came out in like 2019, I think.
Okay.
I forget who played her. Like someone Vikanders, I think.
Looking this up, 2019 Lara Croft.
Yeah, it's the newer Lara Croft. It'll be the newest one made.
Alicia Vikander.
That sounds like it. I want to say massive props. The movie wasn't great. It really wasn't. It was okay. It had moments. She killed it.
That's awesome.
Like, she was Lara Croft brought to screen. She fucking killed it. Like, did all her own stunts as far as I know. Fucking looked the part. Did a lot of work for choreography so she could be the part. Mad respect for that.
Awesome.
And one thing that I think is really cool about Lara Croft, and ignoring and kind of glossing over the departure from reality, you're in a video game, you kill a shitload of people, and there's like no moral conscience or question imposed. Like, we're gonna ignore that.
They're bad guys.
Yeah, we're gonna do that suspension of disbelief for the sake of argument. But she does something in the games and the movies that I really appreciate, is that she's an anthropologist first, and one of the things she really does is respect where she is and respect the people of where she is and the history of where she is. Like, she doesn't just fucking gloss over the importance of that kind of thing. Like, she notices the important details. It's like, yeah, she's a hardcore bitch who's had to just like struggle and fight and survive, and that's really cool. But she's also clever. Like, she uses her surroundings to her advantage. She uses every little bit of information she can get her hands on to keep giving herself an edge against insurmountable odds. She doesn't just do it because she could bench press 1 million pounds or some shit. Like, she's genuinely clever and listens to the smaller things and notices the smaller things and uses them. Which is like, it's a really good quality that not everything takes good advantage of. Because, like, what is most of the downfall of her villains is they don't appreciate history. Yeah.
It's also, like, a really great way of showing that strength is not only physical. Like, mental strength is not only very important, it can also beat physical strength when, like, utilized in the correct way. Which, Can I move on to my smart character?
It is a perfect transition into it.
Yes, nailed it. Woo! Teamwork. From one clever character to another, Tyrion Lannister acted amazingly by Peter Dinklage. Is nailed it. Best part of the show by about a fucking mile, and yes. Was noticed as such, thankfully. But he has this awesome line in season 1 where he's sitting around Jon Snow's just like, "What are you doing?" He's like reading a book. He's like, "Look, my brother has a sword. All these other people have swords and strength." And he's like, I look at, I don't have that. Look at me. I'm like, he understands the situation and understands what he can do and what he can't, and doesn't, instead of, moaning about what he's unable to do, he sees his possibilities. He sees where he can advance in life and takes advantage and like treads forward in those directions. And he like realizes, I need to be strong. He's like, so, where a sword has a whetstone, I have my brain. So reading is like the way I sharpen my steel.
Yeah.
Great line, and like a perfect, showing of his character, just like being smart still. And also, one of the other things that's great about him that it's kind of, to harken back to Guts, is like, he has this cost of character when it comes to relationships, because, and we didn't actually talk about this in Guts, like Guts can't get close to people because he's got a, dead body, like dead zombies trying to kill him on the reg because of him being marked. And it's like Tyrion Lannister can't really have relationships because of his social circumstance. He's in this weird spot where he's in a lofty position in a lofty house, but not appreciated, and looks by their standards hideous.
Yeah.
And so he can't find somebody who's going to love him for his brain, because that's not who you marry when you're like of the royal variety.
No.
So he's got to only be with royals who look at him and are very,
disgusted.
Yeah, disgusted with it, like very much just looking and seeing, an imp.
Yeah.
And so like they don't want to be with him. And so he's like between a rock and a hard place and can't really do anything except,
get
fuck
drunk.
whores.
Get drunk.
Yeah, get drunk
and
pay coin for it.
Yeah.
Even though he's a great guy that cares, he's just always besmirched and looked at and made fun of, and there's nothing he can do about it. And so like he's very smart, uses that to his angle, but also, pays this like large cost, not for being smart, but for being himself.
Just for existing as a dwarf.
Worse. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are moments, which I really appreciate to add to his humanity, there are moments where he comes out as he's jaded. Like, he is fucking irate with the shit he's had to put up with. Like, there's a few drunken scenes where he just fucking snaps at people. And it's like, there's
times where it also overcomes his, like, when he is on the stand, there is an out he has been given that is maybe suspect, but it's better than the one he takes, where he just finally cracks under all this bullshit.
Yeah.
When he's just like, fuck all of you.
Yeah.
I know what this is about. This is unfair. And he's just off. And he kind of strays away from his intelligence, but it's completely understandable because of all the bullshit he's had to suffer that you've seen, and all the bullshit that that he's had to suffer that you haven't seen.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like, this guy's a badass, but also,
he's human.
Has a moment where he lapses in his like steel trap mind, and it costs him where it would cost nobody else.
Yeah. Like he has to work twice as hard to be half as good as everyone else because of who he is.
But to be perceived as half as good. Because he's better than everybody else in the fucking show anyway.
Crushes it.
Yeah, there's only one person that's close to as smart as him. And it's also because, like, but I mean, that guy is, I wouldn't say he's a badass, but he definitely is almost, he's like, he kind of comes across as more like the Watcher from DC. Or is that Marvel? No, that's Marvel, right? The Watchers?
Marvel, I think.
Yeah, it's Marvel. It is freaking the Spider is the only person that holds a candle to his intelligence, but that's because the guy has like no emotional capability because he was castrated as like a young man.
I was wondering if that's what you're talking about. I blanked on his name. It's like, you're talking about the bald guy?
Yeah. But I mean, like, Varys is just like so just removed because he doesn't, but I mean, like, I wouldn't say he's a badass because he has like a tragic story and like, tries to do good at all cost. But like, he's the only person that holds a candle. Nobody else is as close to intelligence as him and human in the series. It's like not even close.
Yeah, and
like he's outsmarting Meisters, and they're just like they're not human. They're just like husks of like solid
they're academic
RAM.
zombies.
Yeah, all they have is like 3 gigabytes of RAM and no humanity. That's like all they are.
Just a hard drive.
But they're studious, just like our next character to talk about.
So, it is no secret. I love the series The Expanse. It fucking slaps.
You don't? No way.
I know.
You?
Crazy.
Brain blown.
And there's two characters that are absolutely fit into the label of badass. But I'm not going to talk about Amos as much as I kind of want to. I'm going to talk about Bobby. So Bobby Draper is a Marine that is introduced. She's this fucking giant woman who grew up on Mars. Absolute fucking unit. She's like 7 feet tall. She's huge.
Jesus Christ.
Girl
can dunk.
I think she grew up in low gravity too, which is part of it, but she's like Samoan. So she's just enormous. And like she actually gets referred to, or someone thinking about her is like, it's like where people grew up to be the size of mountains. And so one of her things is like, hey, she is a giant fucking physical specimen. She walks around in fucking power armor, right? Like she's an absolute beast. But in one of the stories, she ends up like, and numerous times, she has to fight at a serious disadvantage. And so she wins, and like one of the times she does, she's cleaning her armor, and she's just re-watching a video over and over and over and over to look for any kind of defect or any kind of weakness in her opponent's pattern that she knows she has to go fight. And she's like, just any kind of thing to give her an edge, because she's like, I've watched it kill people in these suits. Can't run head on at it. How do I beat it? Because like, and she knows that she has to basically do it on her own. And I think one of my other favorite lines is one of the other character I would nominate as badass is Amos talking about her. Because there's initially thought of like, she's going to go against the main cast. And so James Holden, the captain, asks like, could you fight her? And he's like, Cap, I'm what you would call a talented amateur. She is a professional. It ain't the same game. It's like, oh God.
That is the best kind of adversarial respect I love to hear.
Yeah, like, it was basically like, I've killed people. I ain't fucking with that. Like, no, that's how I die.
There's this mediocre schlocky movie called, I think it's like Hotel Artemis. Is that what it was called? Yeah, Hotel Artemis.
Okay.
Not particularly good.
Sure.
It's got some schlocky moments. It's medium. It's trying for something fun. I think it kind of oversteps the B-movie territory where it should have stayed, in my opinion. There's this great line between the main character and this girl that he used to be in love with, and somebody's like, everybody has names of where they're staying. So in the hotel, you stay in rooms that are named after like famous destinations. Mm-hmm. So the main character is Waikiki, and he's talking to this guy who's played by Charlie Day called Acapulco, and this girl Nice comes in, played by Sofia Boutella.
Sure.
And like, I don't remember how the conversation ends up in this way, and he like, Charlie Day's character Acapulco compares the two of them as like being in the same industry, and they both kind of laugh. And Waikiki goes, I work in the business. Like, this is what I do. This is my job. Yeah. She is the business. It's just like, I wish the movie supported that line a little better, but it's like, damn. It's like the same kind of thing that your boy was talking about. It's like, look, man, I do this. She is this. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
it's so great. All right, so before we go on to the done wrong territory, I want to kind of explain what I meant by economy of character. So in the idea of economics, as far as little as I've learned in like the one course I've taken, to have a sustained economy, you have to have as much or more coming in than you do going out. So there's a balance to it, right?
Yeah.
So for a good character, in my estimation, and I believe our estimation, your character can only be
good at so much.
You can only be not only good at so much, you can only do so much good while incurring so much bad. So if you have, for instance, if you have a story where, and this is the only way we examine characters is within the story that we are told.
Yeah.
If you have a story where a character, everything goes right the whole entire time,
Boring.
that is a bad story. The times that works are comedies, because you can get away with that in a comedy because it doesn't matter
because there's no stakes. Yeah.
There's no stakes, and that's not the reason you're there. Same with like an action movie,
kind of
theoretically. Yeah, I think it makes for a bad story, but you can still have a fun time, basically, is the way it works. For a good story, like if you have a drama, your character has to overcome adversity. So there has to be bad adversity in their life. There has to be a negative.
Yep.
You know, parents die, wife cheated on them, they lost their job. They have to have something bad going on so that they can overcome it.
Yep.
Because if they're overcoming nothing, you know, it's kind of like looking at a billionaire's son and like, oh, they made a new company. It's like, yeah, fucking course they did. Like, they had nothing in the way and all the money to do it with. Of course they did. It's like, yeah, that's not an inspiring story. What is an inspiring story is the guy, you know, like a guy who came from
makes
nothing.
It out of the projects to be successful.
Yeah,
it's the kind of shit you read and go, God damn.
Yeah,
I haven't done anything with my life.
Yeah. Why do I suck? But I mean, that is what, like, you do want generally speaking, you do want your stories to inspire, and that's how you inspire, is like when you overcome adversity. It's why we love underdog stories. It's because, one, we see ourselves in that, and there is like a very human characteristic, but it's also, you know, things weighted against them and they persisted nonetheless. You know, they overcome this problem. It's like, that is what makes a compelling story, in our opinion.
Yeah.
So, let's take out that ugly beaten bat and talk about what is done wrong.
Where it fails
and he's done
make the mark.
Yeah. One of the kind of things that we noticed in the done wrong category is there's no cost to the character for greatness. Like we were saying, there's no negative to their positive. Yeah. Some of this is like toxic masculinity, where there's just like you're pushing a bad message. It wasn't noticed at the time, but you know, we are when we are.
Times have changed.
Yeah. And another thing that we like kind of noticed is like a kind of intelligence in the character, whether it be, you know, learning from mistakes or self-reflection and introspection.
Any
like
kind of
seeing
growth.
Yeah, any kind of growth, whether it be mental or physical, like circumstance or otherwise. So first off, we have something that plenty of people aren't going to like. Go ahead.
We got the hot take of Legolas.
Yeah.
Which before I get the whole
you turn off this podcast,
before you start writing angry in the comments, Gimli has to prove he belongs there, whereas Legolas just seems kind of aloof and douchey the whole time. Like, it's like an inconvenience for him.
Yeah, he's the all-state, all-American football running back. He's not the captain, but he knows that he's going to be on every team. He's the guy. He's not the team captain that picks any players in like a pickup game, but he knows that he's getting picked first. You know, he's got that kind of like assuredness, in his DNA or whatever elves have.
Yeah, and like he just can kind of do everything perfect. Like he just doesn't miss. He
creates skateboarding by accident.
Yeah, he's still a fucking prodigy using swords. He can outdrink the dwarf. And I get that elves are basically supposed to be these kind of elite snobby super people, but there's plenty that have like quote unquote human elements to them, and it takes so long for him to develop any semblance of that.
Yep.
That's just like, oh my god. He's just kind of...
And he's too pretty.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
It's all, yeah. Just fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. Just He's an asshole. I hate him.
Talking of super perfect, what's the other one you have a problem with?
Oh my god. Alright, so again, another hot take over here. Ozymandias from Watchmen. And the reason I don't think his convictions are interesting. His philosophy is interesting. I have no qualms with that, and the kind of crazy lengths for pragmatism. Like the inhuman lengths for pragmatism. That's neat. That's novel motivation for a villain. I don't hate it. I hate that for some reason he has 300 IQ. There's no explanation. And this is a world where fucking Dr. Manhattan exists. You can just make shit up. We have a dude who got blasted in a reactor and became the blue ghost that is God. Come on. Like, you could give an explanation for why he's fucking frighteningly smart. Like, it doesn't even have... It could be haphazard. He put a microchip in his brain. Fuck it. Good enough. Like, there's no explanation for why he is so outlandishly smart that he's doing this crazy fucking 5D chess everywhere. Which, if that isn't enough, he makes a generator to spit out these theoretical particles. Motherfucker, physicists don't know if they're real, and you're like, I'll make them in my backyard. Fuck you! Like, no! Have irrational... Like, why is he so smart?
Yeah, he's the startup kid that I was talking about. It's like, he comes from a rich family also. He comes super smart, and like insanely smart. There's no cost ever being paid. The only thing that remotely comes at a cost, which never seems to bother him, is the fact that he has to kill a bunch of people to save the world. It's like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, that's it?
Like, and he cries with joy when it all works out. He's like, I
killed millions of people.
I did it.
Yes.
Like, I mean, he's crying out of glee because he's saving billions. Like, I get it, but like, fuck you. And the other thing, he's a physical badass. He casually beats people in fights. Like,
he kills the comedian in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah,
that's an ask.
He beats Rorschach and Owl at the same time, like from an ambush, mind you. He just like notices a reflection, whips it out, beats them both. Silly. It's like, and he catches a bullet.
Yeah.
From point blank.
Yeah.
No,
because smarts will do that. If your brain is big enough, it can catch a bullet.
It turns your hands to Kevlar. That's what it does. Yeah.
No, well, it turns into like a super fast Kevlar too. It's not like she's shooting at his hand. Yeah, like he has to move his body that fast.
Like also, I don't know if you know how fucking hands work, but he catches it like between the meat of his thumbs. No, it's just gonna rip through that. Like, it's not gonna. It's not armor.
Are you sure?
He's just so super for no reason. Like,
yep.
Dr. Manhattan is crazy powerful, but is crazy complicated because he's so disconnected from reality, and he doesn't want to be necessarily. Like, he still likes humans, he still likes physical intimacy, but he can just do so much more than single people can keep track of. Mm-hmm. He is interesting and nuanced, and there's a real cost for him being who he is. Ozymandias just gets everything for no penalty.
Yep.
Like, he's... Yeah. Fuck that
Daddy
guy.
Warbucks, I did it all!
Yeah, just...
Good job, son.
Yeah, fuck you.
Was nothing in your way the whole entire time? Uh-huh!
Right, actually, it's super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
Super easy. Nice. I see what you did there. Speaking of not being an inconvenience... My next example on the docket is Dirty Harry, a la the Dirty Harry films in I think it's like the 80s.
Still like you're directing, Mr. Eastwood.
Played by the amazing Clint Eastwood. And these movies, I think one of the things that makes it like a little bit more okay, along with some of these other later examples, is that it's an action movie that has like comedic undertones. So part of this is like, yeah, the story isn't like paramount.
Yeah.
But it seems to care. It seems to make you want to care. And the character doesn't care, which is like part of the problem. Dirty Harry, in I think every single movie, partner dies. They just like fridge the shit out of all their partners every fucking time. You get to know them for like a scene. You're like, later, bitch. And like, they're just like 100% dead. Let's give them 5 minutes. And Dirty Harry never seems to give a shit. Like, first movie to last movie, he's like, huh, Bill's dead? That sucks. Anyway, so I'm getting a cheeseburger. Anybody want, like, it's like,
Just
at no point.
Such a sociopath.
Yes. All he does is sleep with women, kill bad guys, and not care that his partner's dead. Like, that's every Dirty Harry movie. There's no introspection. There's no outthinking people. There's, I know how to pull a gun from my waistband relatively quickly and give you a douchey one-liner as I kill you or put you in handcuffs. Your choice.
And while douchey one-liners are a baller superpower,
a good story and character do they not make?
No. It's... Yeah, like once you can kind of get away with, but like if you're just casually killing, like you're supposed to be a cop. Like I feel like every cop I've ever talked to, there's a serious amount of attachment to their partner. Like, what's wrong with you?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like,
which would be, it would make the character and the story a little bit more compelling. Granted, it's the '80s and it's an action movie, so I guess that's not what they're going for.
Yeah, sure.
But it's like, you know, you could, and they're like, nah, screw it.
Sociopathy for the win.
Sociopathy, would that be a good transition to your next character?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely work.
As they used to be a psychologist?
In this case, it would it would be sociopathy. Sociopathy is the one that's induced. Psychopathy is the one that you're born with. Today you learned.
Yay! I like learning things.
What I'm talking about, and I'm not a big fucking asterisk to this, Harley Quinn. I am only referring to the more modern Harley Quinn, like a la Suicide Squad, that is not the James Gunn one. I have more respect for that one, but still kind of falls with some of the same issues. Harley Quinn is a character that just makes everything happen with a fucking baseball bat. And while I do appreciate the value of a Louisville Slugger to the knee, there's just some times where it doesn't
where the
fucking
aliens
make
don't
the
have
grade.
knees.
And notably, I'm gonna look at Suicide Squad and the travesty that it was, because they're fighting a literal fucking deity. And when presented with a horde of these monstrous amoeba things, she just casually fucking baseball bats them to death. These are things that take multiple bullets to the fucking chest. But, you know, no problem. These are things that have casually eaten through squads of soldiers. But, you know, again, wooden bat, no problem. It's not even aluminum. We couldn't even spring for aluminum. Like... And I
go old school wood. Also, it never breaks, right?
Yeah,
like, it's just rocking that break. Thing. Like, what is it made of? like
if there's an aluminum bat, it makes sense why it doesn't just fucking splinter. Like,
yeah.
Like, and she just kind of gets away with shit. She's not clever. She's not like, she doesn't do anything clever or smart or zany even. She doesn't go crazy like out like. She doesn't do something that is unexpected. People like, they won't do it. She's like, I'm fucking insane. Yes, I will. That I'd respect. And like old school Harley Quinn was wild. Like I love, you know, classic Batman cartoons where they're using like fucking Acme products, just blowing shit sky high. I love that. Like that's old, that's stylized, it's very clear.
But also she's not a main character, she's like a sidekick of a cartoon, literal cartoon villain.
Yes.
Like that makes sense. That plays.
Yeah. And like I mean she still gets shit done. Like Don't want to hate on her as a sidekick to Mr. J, but
Mr. J.
Yeah, her as a main character, and then not getting the crazy zany shit. Boo! Like you don't have a good reason to be so successful. It's just it's bad writing. Like if they gave her crazy Acme products, I'd be stoked. Yeah. They don't. They give her a fucking invincible wooden bat. They give her a +1 baseball bat.
How does her like psychological issues work for you as somebody who, you know, as a writer and as somebody who has studied psychology? How does that work for you character wise? Because that is like one of those areas, the more I think about it, like we talked about before, like having, you know, there is some amount of goodwill and care that makes the audience like have, right?
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of, I'm not gonna say possessed. That's not the right word. But
that's the other character.
Like she's just overly infatuated and basically driven kind of insane. And I think that's fine. Like I don't actually have an issue with the fundamental character that is Harley Quinn, and I don't even have an issue with the fundamental character that is modern Harley Quinn, where she's been ditched by the Joker and she's just kind of lost, and it's just like, I'm just kind of batshit and don't have a place to direct it or someone to tell me what to do, because it's like why old Harley Quinn works, because she's a sycophant. And so when she's a sycophant that suddenly doesn't have her pudding, she's very adrift. She doesn't know what to do. She's lost her only kind of sense of identity and family, which, cool, actually. Like, that's a really cool starting place. It's just,
It's the combat, like, superhero like, dynamic that you have a problem with.
Yeah, like, you're just a bitch with a bat. Like, you don't even take steroids, like...
Yeah. You're asking for the suspension of disbelief to go a lot farther than, like need.
Yeah, like
in these circumstances, like if she's fighting a local crime boss and walking around with a bat, it's like okay,
sure. Like, but you're fighting like aliens and shit with a fucking bat. Yeah. I'm like, no,
give her a bazooka,
get a gun, like, at least, like get a Glock. Come on, something, anything. Ask Deadshot to spot you. Like, come on.
I'm sure he's got a couple.
He's got something he can fucking do without. I'm sure. Yeah, like there needs.
Speaking of something we can do without, let's just round out this category by going over basically every single John Wayne and Arnold Schwarzenegger character from the 60s through the 80s. Because while fun and just hokey as crap, holy crap, they started from the upper middle and now they're at the top. It's like the amount of stuff in their way is clearly irrelevant. Like they're annoyed that the things that are in their way even thought they had a chance. That's how much they bitch slap them. It's just like, seriously, an army of Colombian drug lord villains? That's what you brought to me? It's like, yeah, you're one guy. Yeah, but I'm the one guy. Boom. It's like, why is that? Like, are they just creating their own personal, like, porn registry so that they get to watch when they're older and be like, I was awesome. Like, what are these? Like, they're funny, but in the kind of, are you fucking kidding me sort of way. Yeah, it's just like everything is always their bitch. And it's like, for every single one of their movies, every guy has to be like them. Otherwise, they're a bitch. You know, insert toxic masculinity lines, everything. You know, there's not even a relationship issue where they can't understand women because they've been so desensitized for more.
They get
every woman. Yeah, they get the girl at the end, even though they've been barbaric for 95 minutes. It's like nothing goes wrong. The things that stand in their way are more just there because they needed something to do on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah. Like it's all just traipsings of absurdity.
Yeah, which would work if it was satirical.
Yeah,
like One Punch Man works because it's clearly a satire.
Yeah, it's a meta commentary on anime and action movies.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. It's like that's the reason it works.
This is kind of taking itself seriously. Yeah. Oh God.
This is the reason we have One Punch Man. Yeah. Is because this existed for so long.
Yeah, it's like there's money to be made here. And then there's a few examples we came up with that sort of slot into both, depending on the context you look at them in. And so one that I think works well for both is Superman. And it is entirely dependent on the artist. There are certain artists that make him just this dumb paradigm of good for all without reason. There's no change, no nothing. It's boring. It's boring. He's just he's going to stop the... Yeah. Still Vin Diesel's best role. Not even close. But there is one. Also, I'm gonna quick point this out. DC kind of suck at making live action stuff if they don't recruit Marvel talent. Yeah, at me.
I said it.
I said it. Make me take it back. However, DC crush animated stuff. And there is one Superman movie that I watched in particular that's baller. And this is going to have some serious spoilers to make my point. but it's called Superman versus the Elite. And so it kind of opens up with this group of four superheroes rolling up. They call themselves the Elite, and they're pretty heavy hitters, right? It's the kind of pal around with Superman a little bit. And this dude named Atomic Skull breaks out of prison again. His whole gimmick is that he just kind of oozes radiation. He's like being next to a nuclear reactor. So people just can't get close to him because, well, they evaporate.
Mm-hmm.
And so Superman's one of the people who can deal with him because he can just stand the radiation. So they fuck him up. And Superman's like, alright, we gotta send him back to Rikers. And the leader of the Elite is like this British guy with telekinesis. And he's like, no. He needs to be gotten rid of. He's a problem. He's just gonna break out again. Like, Superman's like, yeah, but we're not executioners. He's like, really? Boom! And just shoots Atomic Skull. And just blows his head off. It's like, whoa. And so Superman quickly realizes they can't coexist. So they go have a fight. And initially it looks like they whoop the shit out of Superman. And then Superman rolls up. Like, poisons one chick who has all these basically monsters in her costume that she can pull out. Which is kind of bizarre, but cool. And so they start running amok. The guy who can do magic tries to cast a spell, and Superman makes a tornado and sucks the air out of his lungs, and then throws him into space. The other two go, fuck this garbage, teleport back to Earth, because they've been fighting on the moon, so there aren't civilian casualties. And the British telepath dude turns to talk to his friend, and just whoosh, he is missing. And Superman appears like the end of the street, just bloody, and he's like, you guys shouldn't have pushed this hard. And it's a shame you don't have supersonic hearing, because otherwise you'd hear the faintest pop as I just threw him into orbit. It's like, dude really is like, oh my god, I can't stop him. And so civilians watching are like, wait, that's not what Superman is supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he runs up and like burns out the part of the brain that's giving this dude superpowers, so he's just a person again.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, last words? It's like, oh my god, Superman's lost it. It's like, actually he hasn't. And that's why he can't. Everyone,
wait, what?
He's duping everyone. So he's having like these drones pick up people, and they're like basically all sitting in a hospital. He hasn't killed anyone. And that's his point. Because he's like, because if I start, who's going to stop me? There's no. He has his moral code in place because he can't break it. Because nothing, at least in this iteration, would be able to stand up to him. He just kill everyone that got in his way.
So he knows that he's God.
Yeah, and so it's a really fun kind of study where it's like, oh, and you just get to see him go unhinged for a minute. It's fucking awesome and terrifying.
And I think that's a great thing because we skipped over why we believe Superman sucks, which I think we need to go into before we expound on why this one is great.
Yeah, he sucks because he's boring. There's nothing. He's not technically special. He just happens to be an alien from Krypton, who by existence is just God.
Yeah, has done nothing to get what he has. Is like values it ish. Yeah. Has a slightly difficult problem, but depending upon which version you're talking about, he gets Lois Lane a large percentage of the time.
He has no trouble fitting in human society.
Yeah, has no trouble fitting in human society. He has one small problem that nobody has access to because it barely exists. And even the guy that does, he can usually just beat because he's the good guy. And so somebody will take the rock off him at some point. And then, so he doesn't do anything to overcome the problem. He just has people occasionally do him a solid and take the chain off his neck or whatever, or somehow live through a fight with something that is made of kryptonite. It's just like that happens in multiple comics. It's like grown got stabbed with kryptonite, 9 weeks in the hospital, he's good. It's like what? There's no permanent cost, there's no cost of action. He doesn't ever have to deal with his moral boundaries either, because that argument is solid that they're making. It's I wish they would make it more in the comics I read and the episodes I watched about DC. It's they don't talk about how often people escape. It's like so often in DC, people escape Rikers. It's like, cool, maybe we should kill them, because whenever they get out, they do seem to kill people or cause a lot of damage in society.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, I don't break that. That's my one rule. It's like, grown. Okay, like, congratulations. Literally, he's called the Boy Scout, and for good reason.
Yeah.
So, other than the expounding on why he can never start killing people, which I think is really cool, like why he believes he should not be allowed to.
Yeah.
What else about this comic, or this version of Superman do you really enjoy? And like stands out in a way of being a positive badass.
I think it was what really stood out to me was just the incredible duality that it can flop between, and just the kind of notion of like, and the recognition of he has to impose that limitation for him as much as for other people. And I appreciated it doing a huge nod to that, to like, this needs to be here because it's like,
yeah, it was a showing of like of his mental exercise, basically.
Yeah, and it's really one of the things they also do is like they show people reacting, and it's like, you know, 3 scenes ago when Atomic Skull's dead, people are cheering for the Elite, like, thank God he's gone. But then like watching Superman just basically executing people, and everyone's like, oh no, this isn't okay. I'm not seeing this. Like, you can't do this. You're fucking Superman. He's like, yeah, and like,
yeah.
And so it was really cool to watch, like, see the narrative flip and see the kind of ramifications that come with it. I mean, even if it is calculated and done, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's still fine because it is a very good explanation for why. Yeah. But I loved how the kind of duality. Also, just seeing Superman, like, bloodied face with, like, the kind of maniacal smile talking about throwing someone into orbit is just so good. It's so creepy.
You're speaking on duality, and I think that's one of the things that's going to exist for my character in your next one, and the kind of both category is that my character is Brian Mills, aka Liam Neeson from Taken, where on one hand it's this really cool, you know, this troubled story of somebody who used to be like a black ops agent or something along those lines. He's making up for lost time with his family and trying to do all these things, and he's, you know, trying to get revenge and do all this. That's really cool. I dig that idea.
Yeah. I think they said he was a spook, so CIA.
Yeah, spook. Okay. The problem I have is that the character is in his 50s at least. And he is like I think we talked about in our last episode, or no, the episode before. On episode 8 we talked about wear and tear. This guy does so much, gets in so many fights.
So many cars.
Yeah, it crashes so many cars, does all this. I don't care that he's winning the fights. As somebody who did mixed martial arts for years, I believe you can help me and attest to this. Even when you win a fight, you are exhausted.
Yeah. Also,
and he's taking fights to the max, getting car accidents, gunfights. He's taking some amount of injury and he's walking it off. And it's like, come on.
I will give... I will add a caveat to some of this. A lot of the confrontation is gunfighting that he does kind of escape some of unscathed.
Yes.
And he is really clever.
Yeah.
Like, credit where it's due. Like, he does the job. Like, he doesn't just kind of get lucky. He's really smart about finding things and tracking down leads, and like, he's very intelligent. So let's do be fair to that. However, he does crash like 3 cars, I think, throughout the course. Yep. I've been in one automobile
and like
accident.
a very, very short timeline also.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's got recovery time that we didn't see.
Yeah, like, he's doing all of this in like 3 days, basically, because he's like 96 hours to find his daughter.
That's 4 days, but whatever.
Well, but I mean, like, considering basically 1 day is travel time.
Okay.
Is kind of what I'm figuring, right? Because
sure.
Get the call, get your...
planning his itinerary. All right,
like,
so you've got like 10 hours in the air.
Yeah, you have to fucking fly to France. Like,
you got to adjust for jet lag, and, you got to get your sleep.
But like, yeah, so I mean, you got to figure he is by like 2 or 3 car crashes in like 2 or 3 days. I've been in one car crash in my life, and it was probably not as bad as some of the ones he's in. It hurt a lot. And he gets into any number of fights.
And you were doing this when you were in your physical prime.
No, I
don't care that
22.
this guy knows what's up. This guy's in his 50s.
Yeah, you're gonna need some fucking serious help walking some of this shit off. Like, yeah. There should have absolutely been a lot more sluggishness. Like, he should not have been crisp on movement.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been fucking leaping off a bridge onto a boat at the end. Like, that should have just KO'd him. Like,
yeah, I think the problem is that the directors, if they were trying to make this like hyper real, which the rest of the movie seems like it definitely wants to be, is that they shouldn't have hired somebody whose part of probably doing this picture was it just wish fulfillment to the max. It's just like Liam Neeson's like, I just want to be James Bond forever. They're like, I mean, if it keeps selling tickets, I guess we'll allow it.
I suppose the money printer can be turned back on.
Speaking of money printing, your next character definitely is liquid enough that probably has that in his basement.
It's got some serious implications. We're talking about Batman. And
I needed a transition, okay? It wasn't a strong leg, but it was a leg nonetheless.
It got there, I guess. So Batman falls into kind of those odd niche circumstances too, where it's like he is sort of the pretty boy gets everything. Like, I think one of the fundamental differences between him and Iron Man, and why Iron Man isn't in this weird list, is that Iron Man makes all his shit. Iron Man spends, like, there's a lot of comic time where he's just fucking about in a lab making his suit. And, like, he's this prodigy that works for it, and he's an egotistical asshat because he knows he can back up what he says. Batman is just like, I have a bundle of money and I can contract this shit. He doesn't make his stuff. He just kind of gets it. He's really smart and went to these fancy colleges. Well, because he was a fucking billionaire. That being said, he does kind of earn some of it with, like, he trained to basically be a ninja. But he also somehow is, like, perfect photographic memory. He has crazy fucking intellect and, like, crime-solving skills. Like, there's just some things that seem kind of out of place and he's to a degree kind of perfectly humble about it. Like, even when he's Bruce Wayne, he plays it perfectly. Like, he's the kind of perfect bachelor when he goes and be Bruce Wayne, which he gives up a lot of by being Batman, especially like the Christopher Nolan movies. Like, he's almost devoid from being normal because he spends so much time as a persona. We're mixed. Clearly, at least I am. It's like, yes, but also no.
Yeah. Very much is like, yeah. It's a very two-sided coin.
Yeah, some of it feels very, very earned. Like the fact he's a really good fighter is very, very earned. But most of his inventions do not. Much of his intelligence kind of doesn't. Or it seems like it should have some kind of ego that it has checked. And that just never happens.
He's Sherlock Holmes without the social awkwardness.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Sherlock Holmes is really smart. Also doesn't understand humanity because he's really, really smart. And
he's an arrogant cunt. Like,
tawdry conversation just doesn't become him. Or like Bruce Wayne can like schmooze motherfuckers all day. Like that's his jam.
Butter.
And
still can bench
press. You're not paying any
pounds.
of. Yeah, you're not. The amount of cost you're paying is like doesn't equate. It's like
it seems like there should just be some kind of cost to his crazy ability, and like that is something that's kind of not mentioned very much in the Christopher Nolan movies. And why, like, he's just outlandishly smart in the comics, and like his ability to just like take the tiniest detail, like you said, he's Sherlock fucking Holmes. Like, that is not an exaggeration. like at all.
No, like multiple writers have said that about his characters. Like that's the reason he can beat Superman. That's the reason he can beat all these bad guys, which is cool. But again, he's not paying for the greatness.
Yeah,
he's just getting it.
He uses it.
He gets
very,
his cake
very
and eats it too. Yeah,
like not
absolutely.
Yeah, he does earn a lot of victories by using what he's got at his disposal. But it's like, how does he have that?
Yeah, he has a superpower that he's not an alien. He's not a freak. It didn't hurt him. It didn't damage him. It didn't kill anybody. Like his parents dying, adds a layer to like why he believes certain things, but it doesn't add a layer to why he has certain things.
It doesn't
which
give
I think
him
is like
180 IQ.
Yeah, he didn't eat their brains after they died, and that's why he's like super smart. Like that would make way more sense and be much of a different and creepier character.
Eat their brains, gain their knowledge.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah, what you guys didn't know is zombies are super smart.
They just lack phonetics.
They can write a dissertation. They just can't sound out
public speaking, not their strong suit.
Speaking of public speaking, shall we throw it to our ad break, or do you want to talk about Batman a little more?
No, I think I've said what I needed and rambled through what I needed to ramble through.
Quick, brother, to the ad break. Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Look, we have a great time here at Super Pros Bros, but if we can get serious for a second here, we'd like to talk to y'all about comedy. Sure, it doesn't always follow story conventions, and yeah, all the jokes aren't knee slappers, but if you just stop and think about it, who cares? Did you laugh at least once? What? More than once? Oh, wow. I'll have you know the execs weren't expecting that. They were hoping for just one at the end of the commercial. Okay, right. Yeah, sorry, Steve. We just wanted to say, it's okay. If the story doesn't make sense, who cares? The songs are repetitious. The editor forgot his second iPod that day. We'll do better next time. The acting was unconvincing. Honestly, I'm not sure they were acting. Like, seriously, sometimes. Okay, Bill, Jesus! So, yeah. We just, you know what? We know, okay? We know. So just bear with it, okay? Ever since the knock-knock joke lost its appeal, and now we can't lean on gay and lady jokes anymore because over 50% of the viewers won't show up. It's hard, okay? So, just please laugh. And we hath returned.
Welcome
I hope you
back.
You got a pitch for this week?
I do. Kind of like last week. It is very speculative, but what would happen if the world didn't have power? Like if someone just went, "What up, planet Earth? Here's an EMP." And so
so Luddite went to MIT basically.
Pretty much. And just on either a country or some kind of macro scale, someone just shut off everything.
Shorted out the world supply of electricity.
So many things that we take for granted are just suddenly inaccessible. So you do not have heat. You do not have the internet. You do not have cell phones. You do not have phones, for that matter, because they're all based on electrical lines. It's gone. It's gone. For the foreseeable future, it is irreplaceable. It is not going to be repaired. There's so much damage to the infrastructure and so much resetting you have to do that it's going to be out of commission for God knows how long. What happens? What does the economy do? Like, how does that work with the reliance we have on modern day conveniences and on the modern day connectivity? And probably what I'd want to write more about is what happens on the day-to-day. So suddenly you have people who can't make food. The food in the refrigerator is perishing. The food at the fucking grocery store is perishing. And canned food only gets you so far. You have to figure out how to cook stuff. You have to figure out how to clean your fucking clothes. You have to figure out how to make water run. You have to figure etc. There's so many problems that you suddenly have to address, and rapidly, with zero fucking training. And so do people help each other? Do they turn on each other? And kind of what gets brought to the foreground as people try and fix things, and do you even try to go back to what was, or does it look wildly different? Do people go, we had an over-reliance on this, we shouldn't revert? Or do we go, I want to go back to the cushy lifestyle I had?
Yeah. So it's just kind of, it would be like it would be a literal novel version of a sociological study.
Pretty much. It may say it'd basically be a thought experiment put on paper, and kind of following, like, my guess is probably like what would happen in an apartment complex, or like a college dorm or something, if just suddenly everything was off and people were stuck. Like
Lord of the Tech Low Flies.
My kind of working title was Lights Off. That sounds way too much like a horror movie called Lights Out.
I was gonna say, I think it should be just called Lights Out, but
no one's taking it.
It was a horror movie.
But something along those lines. It's just it is kind of a fun thought. Like, how do people act? Like, does altruism breed out, or does greed take over? So
yeah, it's like a fun version of a like post-apocalyptic zombie horror thing, except it's just, and if you wanted to, depending how long you want to make it, you can have like the power come back on. Like you can make it super short, and humanity can devolve pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, 3 days, no lights, no internet, no power. Like, people would start going
get
fucking
weird.
Wild.
Yeah. And then you could there's this great story by Isaac Asimov that I remember reading in junior high, where I think it's like the power goes out or something like that, and it's like this little suburban street, and it's during like the 80s, so like the Red Scare and all that, like people were worried about aliens, people were worried about Soviets, and guy leaves like the cul-de-sac to go find out what happened, and like humanity continues to devolve and people freak out and all this stuff, and then he comes back as the sun is setting, and they think he's a zombie and they kill him.
You are thinking of an episode of Twilight Zone.
That was written by Asimov. We'll look up what it is. I'm 100% sure I read it as a short story by Isaac Asimov.
Okay, because there's an episode of Twilight Zone that's basically like the power gets flicked off and like it comes on for one person, like one person's car started. So they just kill him because they're like, he's a freak, he's an alien. Boom.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it sounds a little bit different, but yeah, taken the same way. But like the same kind of thing of like, if you have at the end of yours, if you have it like go that, so it goes, it starts off, you have the first chapter, they're like, it shows them living their life and what they were like before. Power goes off for like basically the whole entire story, and then at the end, you have the power come back on, and people have to live with the realization if they liked it without, and so some people might just like leave that part of society and like go live a little bit more like an Amish lifestyle or whatever. And then you've got people that like, did horrible things during, or things that they regret, and now they have to like live with, and yada yada. There's a lot of like ramifications of the return to humanity. So that's a really cool idea.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
But what do you got going on?
So the pitch I have for this week is called Killing Time. Story focuses around, let's call him Bert. I don't fucking know. He's the perfect, kind of undercover agent. He's a bag man of sorts.
Yeah. And
his mind is wiped, and he's brought in and out of cryostasis whenever they need a job done. It's been going on for a while, and you see him. He doesn't remember anybody except for like basically his handlers. Mm-hmm. He's given a dossier when he is pulled out of cryostasis, and he goes and does his job, and serves his country. That's what he wants to do.
Sure.
each episode is given its own target number. So, like target 1, target 3,419, whatever, and it changes years. And so it has the kind of like half feel of an anthology series and half feel of like, a constant, in that you have certain things being the same and certain things not. He remembers certain aspects about himself. Obviously remembers how to kill, remembers his interactions with the agency. So he'll come out and his handler will be like 30 years older because he like got put back in cryostasis or whatever. And so he remembers them in a little bit of like kind of fun catch-up scenes where you are kept appraised of the story of the kind of exterior characters via like conversation in this way. And it's just like kind of fun way of seeing differences in like the way they look and the way they talk and, what they talk about.
Sure.
And the last season of the show, I would want to kind of bring home the kind of dark secret, which is he kills his family in the last episode and doesn't know it because he doesn't remember who they are. And the only reason that he's able to kill them is because they try to save him and they won't like leave him, hoping that they can like save him from himself and like the, the organization or whatever, name gets given.
Wow.
So, yeah. Real fun spin on that one.
Jesus Christ. Fucking.
I mean,
darn shit, man.
It's what I'm here for. Glad I could help. But part of the reason I think that would need to be is because for it to be as far-fetched an idea as it needs to be, the whole point is to like kind of look and analyze at the way the government and the military treats like its, kind of units, if you will. Like it treats its, soldiers and the people it's like protecting. Is like, yeah, they're trying to protect you, but also they're doing what they think is necessary, whether that's right or wrong, and it kind of doesn't matter. And in a circumstance, it's like, how would you deal with if you had this family of your best agent constantly trying to put it in the news, constantly trying to do this and that, to expose this thing that you think is very profitable and, beneficial for your society? Would you let them continue talking about that and get bad press? Or would you
make them quiet?
Yep. Make them no longer a problem.
Yeah. On that grim note, I'm going to recommend watching Arrested Development to brighten your life a little bit.
Same family problems, just a little bit more jokey joke.
I realize that I'm nowhere near on time for this party, but it is something that I've been watching a bit with my wife. It's got some pretty bad cringe humor. I've gotta admit, straight up. Some of it's like, oh, huh. But there is something. It's just got this bizarre chemistry that works, and Jessica Walters being the absolute worst is always hilarious. God, I hope in real life she was like super wonderful to be around and just wasn't this crazy crone she's always that I've always only seen her portrayed as. But I think the best part of the show is by far the narrator for Arrested Development, and the kind of one voice of like objective voice of rationale and reason.
Yeah,
because everyone else just kind of sucks and is an idiot in their own special way. Like, one thing I love is that the character of Buster is basically made to be kind of autistic, and there's so many times where he's the only one who gets the very obvious thing.
Yeah.
Like, the only kind of logical answer, and everyone else misses it. He's like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. Like...
By the way, the narrator is Ron Howard. So, great voice to love. The creator of, American Graffiti, or the star of American Graffiti, the creator of A Beautiful Mind, and a million other things. Just an all-around great. So, good choice in character that you like.
Yeah, fair enough. I knew that voice was trustworthy.
So from loving one Hollywood elite to the Hollywood elite making decisions, the Oscars are coming out. This transition holds water. The Oscars are coming out next week. That'll timestamp this episode for those of you listening at home. And last year, I don't know if it was the belle of the ball, but definitely got a lot of praise and kind of nominations, was Promising Young Woman. I am not recommending this. I think it is a overhyped and overpopularized kind of like not good film. And obviously, film or art is subjective, so if somebody says they really liked it, they are more than valid to think that. They should not tell them this as if this is empirical data. Not that I am in any way, holding that much clout that you should say that about anything I ever think anyway. But Promising Young Woman was billed as this movie, showing the ills of our society and like the way, masculinity is allowed to be shown and like kind of way too pervasive.
Mm-hmm.
And, guys get to be guys and that's okay. It's like, no, it's not, being rapey is not a guy being a guy. It's a guy being rapey. And that's not cool.
Okay.
The way the movie shows it, however, it very much does these kind of what I was talking about with Peacemaker last week. These like kind of like half measure-y kind of things. Like character goes out. This is like in the trailer and in the movie, like right off the bat. Character goes out, tries to get or pretends to get drunk, lets guy take her home, and lets them be creepy for a little bit, and then calls them out and like freaks them out and does a kind of like scared straight kind of thing.
Okay.
And this like becomes their life. And like that's like one of the it is, to my opinion, that we are supposed to be like rooting for this character, is the way it like is kind of couched. It's like, yeah, this character's not doing good things. It's shown at one point that like what they're doing might have like a cost on them, but they keep doing it anyway. And I can't tell if this is doing like a really weak kind of look at the problem, but look at the solution doesn't work kind of dealy, if you will. It's like, so there's this, I think a better version of the same idea is Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee, where it shows the duality of like a bad situation. So in Promising a Woman, the problem is, if you guys, like the male part of our society right now is fucked.
Sure.
It's like the way things are being allowed is like not cool, but also like trying to be the character that she is doesn't work in the long run.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting message. I think the way they handled it is like pretty poor. And just like the way they showed it, I don't think it was very clear, but it also didn't like leave much room for the audience to kind of make up their mind and see that everybody was bad. They kind of made her a sad hero, okay. Where it was like I felt like you were supposed to like identify with the character, and then the bad thing happens to them. They're like, yeah, dudes suck, and like they're kind of getting what they deserve. And she, like, spoiler alert, the movie's a year old and not that good, so I'm helping you not see it. You're welcome. She dies in the end trying to do this thing and like prove this guy who had raped her friend back in the day, prove they had done it, get him to admit it, and then like get him like kind of prosecuted, I think, from what I'm remembering. Doesn't end up working out. He ends up killing her. They end up hiding the body, but she left this post-mortem note with a lawyer and sends police after them. Hooray! In Do the Right Thing, every character is fallible, but every character is given the moment to show good. There is no character that is shown as like purely like, oh, these guys are bad. It's like, yeah, like these guys suck. But even the most like John Turturro's in the movie as this racist son of an Italian pizza shop owner in Harlem. He's an asshole. But there's plenty of moments where you get to see bits of humanity and bits of him learning little things. There's this interesting discussion he has with Spike Lee's character where they're talking about, the difference between like talking about the people he likes and the fact that he like hates black people, but a lot of the people he looks up to are black. And like there's this interesting conversation where clearly he doesn't agree, but he's starting to see that maybe, but no, fuck you, that can't be right. And that's like the worst character is that character. He's like the most reprehensible character. But there are still moments of, in this movie, while taking the helm of a very easy to guide ship in Rape is Bad, never looks at the male character and gives a fuck. It's always they're a piece of shit. Like, cool, great discussion. All these guys suck. It's like kind of trying to tell me a moral message in like a TV show where everybody's a fucking cartoon version of themselves. It's like, how am I supposed to, kind of look and understand a character when they're zany and there's no amount of humanity in them? All these characters are one-dimensional, just douchebags, which, cool, they're villains, but there's no depth to it. And this is trying to have a big, kind of heartfelt mental, story to it. And like, how the fuck can I?
Yeah.
Just why instead I'm recommending Do the Right Thing, because all the characters are three-dimensional. The story has Samuel L. Jackson as a fucking DJ talking over the whole entire movie. It's just a million times better. It's addressing a different problem, but I think it's addressing it better. And it's a better movie. Watch that instead. Or listen to Wonderland by Caravan Palace, as recommended to me.
Admittedly, yeah.
By thee.
I like how the alternate is listen to a song that is all about self-indulgence.
Dude, I couldn't tell you what that song is about. I was too busy dancing.
That's fair. It is groovy and jazzy as fuck.
It's like if Pogo made a song for a Cowboy Bebop fight scene. That's the way it feels to my brain.
Okay.
It's got that kind of like Pogo thing where he's like remixing, like, because it kind of feels like they're remixing a song that would be used in like a old Mickey Mouse cartoon.
Yeah.
But like the speed and the kind of jazziness you're talking about, it makes me think I want to see like Spike doing some freaking high like crescent kicks and just dropping foos. Like doing his like little like where he's like dancing in place. There's a better term for that, but where he's kind of like soft shoeing in place, like ramping up to like throw a high kick or something like that.
Yeah. It's like winding up.
Yeah. And with that, I do believe we have reached the end of the episode.
We sure have, bro. Broflowski. That doesn't work.
Broflowski. And since that is the end of our episode, we thank you for tuning in and spending your time with us. And if you enjoyed this, please feel free to
like,
comment,
share,
and subscribe.
And don't forget, new episodes of Super Pros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month.
Bye! Haha, you went long this time.
Yep.